I would like to call to order the January 14th, 2021 special meeting of the Tipp City Board of Education in the Tipp City Public Library. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Just for our order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Dave, do you want to call a roll or do you want me to call roll?
I'll go ahead and call roll.
Okay, thank you. We're ready for roll, Dave.
Dunaway,
Here.
Vice President Zakor,
Here.
Mrs. Dahl is absent this evening. Mrs. Heatherly.
Here.
Mr. Patry.
Here.
There is a quorum this evening, Madam President. We can proceed.
Okay, great. So the purpose of us attending tonight was for both boards to get together to have a joint meeting and to just discuss the proposed draft of the library board policy as revised at our work session. And I believe that everyone got a copy of that? Okay, so
The Board of Education policy concerning the library, not the library board.
correct, yeah. The appointment of Tipp City Public Library trustees that the Tipp City Board of Education worked on. And we wanted to go over it with everyone here. Bill, do you want to lead this or do you want me to lead this? It's up to you, it doesn't matter to me.
I'll go ahead.
Okay, that's fine, I don't care. We've already drafted our part, so that's.
Yeah, I would suggest that we just kind of go through it,
Absolutely.
linearly.
Yep.
So does anybody have, and you guys have already.
So do you want me to
you
give
guys
the
already know this.
background? I think that you guys were all in attendance at the last Zoom meeting. I was the only board member that Zoomed in, so we, as I think it was one of you commented, this was kind of drafted. We took the policy from the Shaker Heights School Board of Education, and we kind of took some things that I think one of you mentioned that it was Shaker Heights is a very affluent community and it was bigger than us, and we duly noted all of those things. But it was one that seemed like it was workable for both of us. So that was kind of what we used as our cookie cutter. And so that's what we made changes, and that's how we got to this document. So this is a fluid document. We're just here to get everybody's input.
Madam President.
Yes, sir.
If it please the board, I was tasked with drafting the policy, and the intent that was relayed to me by the Board of Education was that we wanted to let the Tipp City Library Board of Trustees continue picking their trustees, but to provide a process for continuity of institutional memory as well as understanding of the board of the respective responsibilities and rights of each entity. And so I drafted that with that in mind, and using the Shaker Heights template, but modifying it to remove it from the Board of Education and placing it with power really to the Library Board of Trustees. The other thing that I envision this occurring is that this would, if acceptable to you or how it's revised and acceptable by both organizations, is that we would then come to an agreement and integrate this policy to both the Board of Education's policies as well as the Library Board of Trustees policies, so that they would mirror each other and we would kind of go forward together, if that makes sense.
I think that's reasonable, and I think that's I'm okay with that approach.
Great.
I guess I want to say a little bit of an introduction. This is just my perspective. The board obviously hasn't met to discuss this, so I'm not speaking for the board, just for me. Overall, I'm happy with this. I have a few detailed bits that I have questions about and want to kind of pick at, I think.
That's why
But
we're here.
overall, I don't think there's anything in here that I find objectionable.
Great.
From my perspective, board members might have a different opinion, I don't know. But just to sort of set the tone, I think it's by and large, it's heading in the right direction. That would be want everything to go, I think. Does anybody have any, I'm just going to start going through it. Does anybody have any comments about the first paragraph?
I do. Under number 1, super 3-month advance.
I mean, literally the first paragraph.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Paragraph by paragraph.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Second paragraph.
I know.
I'm just going to make sure we get it. Third paragraph, we want to begin with as it relates to. Okay.
Matt, this is you, number one.
Paragraph.
Right. So we don't always have a 3-month notification of the vacancy either. If someone leaves
Okay.
midterm, I could say today, hey, I'm done, I quit.
Yeah,
We
sure.
don't have 3 months to notify. So
Understood.
that wording needs to be or is.
How
as
about
they
like
receive
if
it,
available or if
something.
possible?
Right.
If possible, is that okay?
When possible.
Yeah, as
Right.
landed superintendent 3 months in advance. Yeah,
And I would say that you want to be more specific because of the 45-day deadline. So what I would suggest is that 3 months in advance of vacancy or within 5 business days of notice at the end of the term or something like
Right,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to being time limited, but
Yeah.
if we don't have 3 months to
Yeah,
give, we're
that
gonna
was a
be
good catch.
automatically.
so are you okay with us doing the verbiage on that and get back to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Send it to me, thanks.
I left it in my jacket.
No, I said, do you need one?
I'll go
Wait,
grab it.
what?
I got a handful of things. I always.
Sorry,
No, you're fine.
I left it in my jacket.
No, you're fine. Okay, so you trust us to work on that. We're gonna get the draft back to you. So, yeah,
And again, at this point.
yeah, that's what
We
we
have
have.
plenty of time to work on this.
Yeah, we have until somebody else says, hey, I'm done, so we're good. So,
I also have another comment about the 3 months, and it's really about point C.
okay, so do you wanna just go A and B first?
Oh,
because
sure,
we'll
yeah,
go through-
Maybe, but no.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you're right.
Hey,
you're
Matt,
right.
I'm sticking up for you. I'm getting in on that.
Anybody else have any comments on the first paragraph, number 1?
Okay, we'll get back to you on that.
Any comments on paragraph 1A?
I do. The only thing I would like to make sure that we clarify
Mhm.
is we need to define application.
We did discuss that, yeah, like, is it
Because
online?
what an application means to us, by definition, the board, is a letter of intent and a resume. That's their application. They send a letter of intent and then they send their resume. They either can mail it in, we'll talk about
We
it.
don't have a form that gets filled out if someone wants to be a board member.
Right,
The
so,
form, it's been that way, it's listed that way on the website forever, is if you're interested, please submit a letter of interest with your resume.
So,
That's what.
I could probably just use
I'll
something
sign
and
it.
say, for purposes of this document, an application is considered a letter of intent and resume.
the document's drafted that if things need to be defined on your end, they don't need to be defined in this document, they just need to be defined in your policies and guidelines. Right? So if you like, so a couple of things on, maybe I should have put this in the beginning, but I'm trying to find the paragraph where this is.
Like in B, could we just add submission of a resume with a letter of intent?
So number 6 is that, okay, that's the application. So let me, what I would suggest I do is I add that to the extent any meaning or related to definitions needs to be defined and designed for this document, it will be found in your policy or something along those lines, so long as it's consistent with everything else.
That's fine.
That way we don't have to define everything and get too cumbersome. Because definition, I try and give this document some lasting power, so right.
Can I just say, I don't know, in B, just adding the submission of a resume with a letter of intent, would that cover it?
no, if we just leave the word application, and it's like he's saying, it's defined on our end.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, I thought you're kind of defining it right there when you said that such application shall require the submission of a resume. Aren't we saying,
So,
that submission of a resume with a letter of intent?
so when you're providing the notice to the Board of Education, you're supposed to provide the day of the application deadline for the interested candidates to file the application. The next thing is the manner and method an application may be made. That would include the form of the application. The resume was left in there because it was on the Shaker Heights policy, and I didn't take anything out that wasn't told to me to take it out. So if you want to take that out, we can, or we can leave it in there.
What was that, Matt? Yeah.
That's fine, that's part of our policy, I mean, that's already our policy, so there's no reason to take it out of yours.
Well, it's not complete, so.
I think, like, what Mr. Fletcher's saying, and what we're either take it out or add the, with the letter of intent. I'm just leaving it in there, kind of just lets it hang.
Yeah.
That's what I
Well,
would-
if we define application as letter of intent plus resume, if the next sentence says application with resume,
Some
Again,
people
redundant.
like an as-is thing where application.
what if we decide to get an application in 10 years, we have an application, then they don't have to change their policy to include something that's not on it.
So I probably did a bad job of explaining this. because I didn't remember what I had written initially when I talked, and now that I've read this, it makes sense, is that item B, so anytime somebody is vacates a trustee position, you're gonna provide notice to the Board of Education. Item 1A, B, C, D, and E talks about what the notification is gonna include. And so your item B is you telling us the manner and method an application can be made. And so if you want an application to be a letter of intent, you would just say, we'll provide your notice, the method and manner is going to be a letter of intent and a resume. The back part of B, the second part of that says, so long as that manner and method includes the submission of a resume. So essentially the only requirement the Board of Education was including in this is that we wanted a resume submitted. And so if you include letter of intent resume, that was satisfying. If you said, you know what, we're going to go, the letter of intent is no longer sufficient. We want something more. You could go further so long as that step further includes the resume. So that gives you a lot of discretion.
And also because we are advertising, you know, we would say, please submit a resume and letter of intent to Tipp City Public Library or Tipp City Board of Education, because we're doing joint marketing, media and stuff.
May I ask a question? The application itself, is that going to be a standard document for both boards?
Not an
There is no application.
It's a resume and a letter of intent.
Okay, so there's no form that they can.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
They submit a
And it's
letter of
always been that
interest
way.
and a resume. That's the way that's, as far as the records go back that we can find.
100 years,
It's
haven't we
been-
been saying
We
100
have, I
years?
mean, we have records that
Yeah.
go back 100 years.
That's
That's-
awesome.
So their letter of intent, my letter of intent is different than your letter of
Correct.
intent,
Yes.
as long as you're expressing an
I,
intent.
Bob Smith, want to serve on the Tipp City Public Library, boom, resume, you're done.
Right.
Yes.
Perfect.
Well, that's a nice way of making it easy.
Yeah.
Right.
It is easy.
And then that.
And sometimes they're very detailed, and sometimes it's almost a redo of their resume, and they'll tell us why, and which is all great. Sometimes it's, my name is Matthew Straczynski, I have an interest to be on the library board.
And I think that's kind of neat too, because it tells you a lot about that person. Like, that little piece of paper says, wow, you know, if this is a get to it kind of matter of fact, and this is a person who's gonna more of an engineering type, you know,
Right.
thinker. So that's neat.
You have something else you were trying to say?
Yes, and then on the advertisement, we could put something, you know, in order to.
That's always, so that statement's on our website, 365 days. It always has to. It's been in different areas on the
Right, and I'm
website,
thinking
and it
beyond,
hasn't via, right.
I'm thinking even beyond the website.
Most people that want to serve on the library board seek the answer to how to be on the library board. Either they come into the library and see the postings, or they go on the website and look to see how they do it. It's not a position that unsolicited, 99% of the population of Tipp City wants any part.
Kind of like Board of Education.
No, it's not. You
Even
get
less
to have
than
your name
Board
on
of
signs and you're on TV.
We
and-
didn't have anyone, we had 3 spots
I
and
know.
3 people last time.
I'm just saying, it's not, so again, it's not, it's, none of us do it for the glamour
Right.
of being on the library. It's people that have a passion for the library.
Yeah.
And so if you have that passion, the information is very easily available.
Gotcha.
Any other comments on 1A?
I'm sorry. Wait, we're on. I thought we were on.
We didn't need to be.
I thought we
Our
did.
signs at
We're
6.
I think we did
discussing on
meet. I like it.
application. All right, any comments on 1D? And I have a comment about 1D that I'd like to make.
Sure.
I am concerned, and I think some of my fellow board members are concerned about the logistical difficulty that we're going to run into with submitting applications to potentially 2 different places. And we have a suggestion that we set up a joint shared email box that both the Board of Education and the library have access to, I didn't have access to. And then that would be the method to apply. 99% of applications are going to be done via email digitally anyway. That we have a joint email box that we both share, and there's one spot for things to go to.
Can we speak up?
Did you say I need to speak up?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yes,
Mike.
please.
I was suggesting the concept of a joint email box that we both have access to, just to make it logistically a little bit less cumbersome for people
Okay,
to submit resumes or to submit their letter of intent and their resume. I think we would also have we would also suggest a backup for people who only submit, only for some reason have written hard copy, that when those are received, that those are scanned and then submitted to that
To that
same
email box, yeah, I agree with that
And that way we
100%.
have one collection point where everything
Yeah.
is there.
I definitely want the paper option available, because some people just are.
Yeah, you gotta make that.
Okay,
But we'd like to suggest an option like that, so it's a shared box instead of two separate locations. And I think, given that option, a written thing can be given to either, can be submitted to the Board of Education or the library, as long as you both scan it, stick it in the email box, and then, and does everything's all in one place.
yeah, I agree with that. I think we discussed that at one of our meetings, ours or yours.
Well, I wanted-
We discussed it too, so
Well,
that's
yours,
great.
no, it came out of yours because at yours,
I thought so.
a comment was made about how would the school board trust that the library would show the
Yeah,
school
back
board
and
all of the
forth, yes,
resumes that came in.
right.
And so that I brought up in our meeting that I have exactly the same fears. How am I to trust the
Yeah,
school board
I remember
to
you saying
present
that.
all of us with the resumes?
Yeah, this is the perfect solution, and it's
So it
great.
came out of your meeting.
Yeah, it's great.
So the thing that comes to mind is that we kind of walked into this because of time, long time, and a loss of institutional memory, things like that. The other thing that's going to be evolving is technology, use of emails, things like that, in ways we can't anticipate. So I'm not saying I'm against that. But I would suggest we come up with a different phrasing
Some words that are technology neutral and
that talks about some of the electronic medium as agreed upon by each board every year and to which you have equal access or something, e.g. email, shared drive, something like that.
That-
Might be
and
more
that could be
lasting
done-
power.
That could be done at this, there's a spot in here somewhere where once a year, the superintendent and the library director meet to make sure everything's still working okay. That
That
could
every
be
other-
discussed
yeah.
each year at that meeting.
Yeah, so why don't we add it to that part? I kind of like that better.
Well, so we're gonna add to B.
Yeah.
So ability to submit an application, and then what I'll do is I'll do a drop down, kind of a little 1, 2, and 3, and then that's gonna be to the Tipp Library, Board of Education, or to a electronic destination, blah, 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 something like that.
Yeah.
Does that work?
I think that.
Does that work with everybody else at the school board location?
And then is this,
Yes.
and then this is the part where you want to put, superintendent and,
That's gonna be on the end there.
yeah, okay, gotcha. Well, decide that at their annual meeting. Sure.
I don't think to try to derail, but I'm kind of showing my day when an application is really an application. And that's you fill out your name, address, et cetera. It's referenced in here so many times on the front page, 1, 2, 3, at least 4 times. Should there be some, because if I was a cold reader, knew nothing about this and read this, I would believe that I need to find that application somewhere.
This is your policy, the library board's policy. We don't have a formal application. We submit a letter of intent.
I
And
understand.
this is your policy.
I-
So if you want to change the wording in your policy, then that's something that you guys can talk about.
So
We're not having
the
an
goal here,
application.
Matt, is to have a joint policy, so.
I understand,
So-
but something we talked about is the word application can mean a lot of things. We are
So
talking about.
in response to that, we're gonna define,
Okay, I don't know if
we're gonna define
I maybe he
that
can't hear us.
application means.
I think he's suggesting,
Resume.
is that Dave Stevens? Yeah, he texted me, but I don't have
Texted me.
phone service. Okay.
All right, let's try it here.
Yeah.
That's the closest we can
Tell
get.
him we moved it.
Because Ann, it's hard to hear Ann.
Yeah.
The person on the
Hang on.
street is going to see an advertisement that says, please send us your letter.
I'll move it if you-
and resume.
Yep.
And I'd be perfectly happy if everyone.
Okay, okay, Simon, you're good? Okay, you're good. Yep.
It's a letter of intent and resume, that'd be fine with us too.
Got it?
I'll tell you what, I would suggest at this point that what I just do, and I'll just define the word application in this policy. That could be, an application in this policy means whatever it is defined by the Tipp City Library Board of Trustees, including but not limited to a simple letter of intent, blah, blah, blah. That way, everybody's satisfied. Does that work?
That's fair enough.
Great.
Any other comments on 1B?
So we're gonna
They're all
remove
good.
that fourth line, right?
No, that's still there. It works, it makes sense.
Well, it's not complete.
It is complete. Because this is one sub-bullet of one, and one already talks about the application.
Okay.
And all the school board is saying, we require a resume. The library board of education requires more than that. This is just what the board of education.
So whatever your policy is, will have to include, so whatever your application format is, will have to include a resume as
Yes.
well, based on this. If we, yeah, that's the thought process again, is to have a joint one.
Right.
So this is going to be everybody's policy once we're done. It's our draft, but it will become our joint thing. But you're able to supplement this policy as you see fit, so long as anything that you have is consistent with what's in here.
Right, our intent will be that our policy that we put in our policy document will be compatible with this.
Perfect.
Okay, 1C, I'd like to make a first comment. I don't think that 3 months in advance of the vacancy, we're gonna have any idea about dates, times, and locations of interviews. So I don't think that C is possible, unless that means something that I'm not understanding.
Once you pick the people to interview, you're gonna.
Well, everyone gets interviewed, but that's, I mean, again, if we don't know when we're gonna schedule these, we usually schedule them for October and November.
Yeah, on 12.
Even then, it's just a general idea.
I know, we like to do it within these, we usually block 2 weeks and try to fit them into those weeks, because everyone has to be interviewed by the entire board, and it's, I mean, logistically.
Was there a reason why the Board of Education wanted to have times and dates communicated, or did that mean something else?
Well, the reason is that you need to be able to plan for it. And so and you have to be able to get all of it done in time for the 45 days before the end of the term.
Sure.
So
Can we put that in? You know,
Could you put in like
that, you know, that we need to make sure that we have interviews in order to accommodate the 45 days.
Excuse me, it's not before 45 days, end of term.
Yes, yes.
it's 45 days after the end of term.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I said. So you got the 45 days after that term where we have to swear them in. Usually we've done it in December before the end of the term, historically, I believe, right?
Right.
And so if you do it 3 months before, then that
Or
gives,
January, lots of times it was, your meeting in January has been before our meeting.
I'm with
There
you.
were years that they would get voted on in your January meeting.
So I guess,
Before ours, so.
so I guess this is more of a logistical item. I don't have any objection with removing it and modifying it in some way, so long as that everybody, that when you read this document, everybody has a sense of the timing constraints.
Can we do the same thing in?
Can we change it to something like, you know, we will provide a commitment of intent to interview candidates by, you know, whatever date we're gonna have. Because there's no way you can even have a date and time, we don't have
No, but we can
candidates.
say before 7, rather than going like the 5 business days that we used on the other one. Provide notice of date, time, and location of interviews, at least 5 business days before interviews.
Why
10
don't,
business days or 15 business days, whatever you want.
why don't we,
Can you put like October 1st or something?
Mike-
Because you said it's usually October, November.
I wouldn't use a firm date. My suggestion
Term vacancies.
would be is that we cut and paste C somewhere else. We take C out of 1, which takes it out of the 3-month window, and then we just place it after or in 2, where it talks about at the expiration of the deadline of submission applications, because then you guys have the logistical knowledge you need to give us that. Does that work?
I think that makes more sense.
All right.
That was an easy fix.
Okay.
So we're on to D.
Now we're at 1D. I'm sorry, you're right, 1D.
Yep.
That's, anybody have issues there with 1D? All right, 1E.
Just so you guys know, typically the board president is the point of contact
Okay.
because it has nothing to do with the director. The
Sure.
fiscal officer are the only people that we have work with.
Absolutely.
And so it's the president
Perfect.
that handles that.
And
And not the trustee whose term is
Yeah.
over.
Sure.
They're not involved. in the process.
Absolutely not. Okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I missed.
Yeah, so the point of contact, the way we're set up now, that is the trustee president, is the point of contact for all trustees, for the trustee process, applications, interviewing. And that is the entire board in that process, except for whomever's term is expiring.
So what this
So I don't
was,
want to change it. I like how you have it, because
Yeah,
if
this
it's
is
not,
fine.
because if it's not the president one year, I don't want you to have to change it, but I'm just letting you guys know.
I'm with you.
It's
Yeah.
the president.
So this was drafted to give it lasting power if your customs change and things like that.
Right, but just so you know, it's the president.
So, Simon?
We don't,
We do use.
Yes,
the
Dave?
director.
No, this is Bill.
Oh, sorry, Bill, it's not like Bill
House?
Stevens.
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
Board member.
Doing all right. C could probably be stricken. It seems to be duplicative of number 5 below. Because number 5 says that the Tipp City Library Board shall provide applications along with dates, times, and locations of interviews to the designated Board of Education Library Committee members.
I love it, Bill, that's great.
That'll take it out of that 3-month issue, and there's something substantially similar in number 5.
Good catch, Bill, I appreciate that.
That works. So I won't put it into 2 then.
Nope, we don't need to, that's great.
Just, yeah, strike it from C from 1, and I think 5 covers it.
Thank you.
I agree with you.
You're
All right.
welcome.
D was fine, so we're on E.
Yeah, 1E, my comment on 1E is really, and maybe it doesn't matter, is about the use of the word advertisement. Because we wouldn't purchase an advertisement because this local paper is happy enough to put an article in for us for free that says there's an appointment of, an open position. So as long as advertisement can be loosely understood to mean a posting in the newspaper or what have you, then I'm okay with it.
I didn't love that word either, because it makes it sound like it's a paid ad.
Should we say the marketing efforts instead?
Yeah, I didn't love that
Sure,
word.
that'd be fine with me, I think.
Yeah, I do like
Unless
that.
anybody else has a different phrase that you.
and I think a question that came out of our last meeting about this too would be if there was money spent,
We're not.
that's at the discretion of the board that is spending the money. So
Yeah.
if the school board decides to take out a full page ad, you can't
Go
build a
for it.
library because you.
No, absolutely
offered
not.
us. I
Yeah.
don't know how we put that in there, where we put that in there, but I think I know that question came out. of
I-
the meeting.
Yeah, it's
I
not
definitely
our-
don't think either one of us want to spend, you know what I mean? We have quick news, you guys have your bulletin
Yeah.
board.
Right.
It wouldn't make sense for any of us
It's
to
been,
take
our
out.
trustee position has been advertised in Quick News in the.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That
We've
was,
done that many years.
exactly.
So,
Okay.
Go ahead, Lisa, were you trying to say?
Yeah, that was
something?
one of our bullets from in the meeting. It said the Board of Education and the Library Board can publicize library trustee openings as they choose at their own expense.
So what I've
If they want to
done
pay for it or not.
to address that, if anybody has any issues, let me know from both sides, is that instead now E would read the marketing effort to be used by the Tipp City Library and the school district to publicize the vacancy shall include at least the following information.
I like publicize a lot better.
List of 1 through 4 there, as part of 1E.
1 through 4, what? I missed that.
Does anybody have any comments on 1 through 4?
Oh, yeah, no, I don't have any comments. Do you guys?
Again, number 1 would be modified to be whatever joint. Like if we, the whole email, joint email,
Just-
whatever
yeah.
language we want to use there. Because that reads as. if-
Right, because like you're saying, should it say joint email box? Is it
It'll mirror whatever we end up with 1A or
1B?
1B.
Perfect.
Right. Paragraph 2. Any comments? Paragraph 3. Any comments? Paragraph 4. Any comments?
I have comments.
Elaine's waving.
4.
Can you hear me?
Oh, you're loud and clear, Elaine.
We do not select candidates for interviews. We always interview every application.
I would like to comment to that, Linda. I think.
And in addition, we have had history where an applicant has a great resume and intent and question answers, but they do not interview well. And we've had the exact opposite of not a very good package, but they were a great interviewee. So that's why we take all applicants.
I agree with you, and I know that historically we have always done that. I am reluctant to put in writing that we shall interview every candidate. Because next year, what if we get 75 candidates?
Yeah.
We're not going to interview all of them. And I don't think we can put in a requirement. I think that we should always have the intent to interview all of them. And I think it's a good idea to always interview all of them, but I don't want a shall statement saying that we shall interview all of them.
So
Well,
what
why do we have to say select group? Why can't it just say shall then?
So this is there to let both sides know that you are in charge of selecting who you interview.
This is giving us the authority.
Then why don't we?
How about we just say, the Tipp City Library Board of Trustees shall then select candidates to interview.
Yeah.
And let's just
Yeah.
take the group part out.
I like that.
So just say, got that, Simon? So we're just gonna scratch a group of, and then it's perfect.
Right.
Trustees shall then select candidates to interview, period, easy peasy done.
Okay, any other comments on 4? Comments on 5?
Thanks, Elaine.
Comments on 5? Comments on paragraph 6?
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just making sure it covers everything you want.
Okay.
I'm sure it does, because when you read it.
Let me know when you're ready.
Well, so I mean, are we questioning specifics of this? Because then this is another.
Whatever you want, yes.
This came out of our last meeting came the question, if Board of Education members want to participate in the interview process, what role in that process? So here's how the process works. There's 6 board members in the room. The director is usually in the room just because sometimes they've coordinated interviews. We want them to be part of it. They have to work with the board too. But they don't vote. They aren't part of the final discussion. We go to executive session for that without the director. So at that point, you've got 6 people with everyone that's interviewed. So if the Board of Education brings 2 more, so then you're facing a panel of 8, which we've all agreed on. That's fine. It's intimidating, but it's fine. But at what role is the school board looking in that? Questioning? Are they part of the post discussions they lead? We usually schedule an hour per interview because it takes 30 to 45 minutes. Then we have some minutes to talk, and then we bring other people in. So what's that role?
So the role that we came up with is that if the Board of Education, there's 2 members that can be, up to 2 members that can be selected for the committee on our side.
0 or 2, depending.
Yes.
We decided.
So you may have none or you may have 2.
Oh.
If they participate, they have to participate for every meeting.
Every interview, which I got that from your Zoom meeting.
So we added that yesterday. And then the other thing is that if they do participate, the anticipation is it would be an active participation, but in an advisory capacity. So the Board of Education wouldn't have a vote, but they would have the ability to ask questions and participate in the interview process is how we were envisioning that.
Yeah.
And I would also add this, it's a personality thing. Like, let's just say right, this year it's myself and Simon.
Right.
I don't think Simon is neither, and people change, right? Next year we might have a different person on the board with a different personality. But me personally, it's your deal. I'm just there it would never be my intent to, I have 50 questions. Are you kidding me? Really?
Right,
This is
so-
kind of like our deal, not your deal.
Right.
And then I would think that it would be, hopefully, the current board that we have now, everybody has boardsmanship, and I would not expect that to happen. But then it would be completely appropriate for you to say, Mrs. Dunaway, we need to move on, or do some kind of signal like, girl, no, we're done. I mean, because it's not appropriate for us to kind of come in and.
We have set questions.
Yeah.
It's so that we ask that
So we would
every
be more of a
interview,
listener.
the same question.
Every person.
And we elaborate some on those, but you just get into that too much, is that it's not really about, it's the answers to the questions that the board feels that those are the answers that make a good board member.
Sure.
And so if
It's
we
not
look
our
at,
intent
even
to
among
be
ourselves, we don't allow a whole bunch of, let's fire 20 more questions about
No.
his answer on this person,
Yeah.
because that's not necessarily fair to the interviewee. And it
And then everybody else
allows
can have the
the board
opportunity.
to manipulate an interview that shouldn't happen.
Totally
And
agree
so-
with that. And I would
we're on the same
completely think that it would be appropriate for you, if that were to ever happen, of course, all of these seats could change in 5 years, 7 years, later. I would just
1
say,
year.
I would say,
That's what-
excuse me, Mrs. Dunaway, we have a set thing here, and just put it, it's appropriate to say, hey, this is not your meeting, quit running it.
So why don't we,
Do we even, is there even a suggestion to change anything?
Well, so Matt brought this up. So Matt, what would be your suggestion? Or are you okay with it now that we've explained it?
No, I just think we just needed to understand.
Yeah, sure.
I think
So
what I
it's
could
okay
add,
as is.
what I could add to kind of address that issue is that in number 11, appoint one or two representatives of the board to review applications and to participate in candidate interviews in advisory capacity,
Yeah, that's great.
and then add and in accordance.
It's fine. I don't think we need to make any changes.
Okay, because I could add to your guidelines.
11 kind of.
Yeah, and I trust you guys to put us, and I mean, I don't anticipate any of us kind of acting like that, but
Okay.
like I said, in the efforts of longevity, who knows what can happen on this side of the table in
Right.
2 years, 5 years, 7 years. I understand your point.
I have a comment.
Yes, Elaine.
Go ahead, Elaine.
If a school board representative chooses to ask a question of an applicant, that same question has to be posed to each in the interview process.
Elaine, we learned something tonight, and it was really nice of Matt to let us know that you guys have set questions. So it would be absolutely positively inappropriate for a school board member to ask a question. I would find that to basically be almost grounds for asking them to leave. Because
So-
to your point, if everybody else prior to that didn't get that same question asked, it would be completely unfair.
Right.
So I trust that Matt is going to tell, or Bill or whoever, hey, we have a set list of questions. We do not go off this. Here's the script. And we don't go off the script. It's pretty simple. If you can't.
Okay, well, I'd like to say one more thing. If you guys are looking to have a question to ask, then maybe that can be presented to us as an additional question.
That would be nice. I mean, sure.
I'm not recommending it, I'm just saying that's an option.
Give you the question, we'll give you the questions.
We actually would have
We wanna
7
see stuff
questions, I
happen,
think,
so
don't
we
we? Because we go around, so maybe you'll get one.
I mean, that's really nice. I don't think that'll happen, but we appreciate the
We'll
effort.
show you the question.
Yeah,
That's essentially what we do, and I thought there was 7. that
There
were
are 7
one
questions.
You know
person
what?
One of the
has
reasons we
2.
have the directors.
Hey, maybe if we came up with a great one, you would go, hey, wow, but who knows?
Right.
Right, crazy.
So have we,
I would suggest that you never know who will be on a board and how they will act. And so you could certainly have someone say, I'm allowed to be on here and ask and participate. I'm going to ask all the questions I want.
Yeah.
So what I would suggest we do is we say, in advisory capacity and in accordance with the process defined by the Library Board of Trustees, which then takes care of that.
I like that, I like that addition.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, and I think technically that was a discussion about paragraph 5, although that's on.
Yeah, that
But
was.
yeah, but
I
to
don't
solve
want
it, we want to
Yeah.
11.
Anybody have anything additional to 5? Okay, comments to number 6, paragraph 6. All right, moving on, comments to paragraph 7. Paragraph 8.
I'm sorry, I'm still on 7.
I'm sorry. Okay, paragraph 8. Paragraph 9.
I have something with paragraph 9.
Go ahead.
Please. And this is your policy, so however you want to do it. I just worry about using the last phrase, the Board of Education shall appoint such candidate. Thinking long-term, we may have totally different people at some point. At some point, you may have a candidate presented that you would say, I know something about this candidate, or this is not somebody we want on the library board. And I think that kind of ties your hands to not.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm not sure how to do that.
It should, we could say may appoint instead of shall appoint.
I say revoke to appoint.
So you have 7 board members.
Mhm.
We have 5. And so the issue that we had here is that for 100+ years or whatever, you have done a great job with the 7 Board of Trustees, providing us candidates to appoint.
Yes.
And so if you provided us a person that there was a reservation about, that would have been addressed likely at the
Okay.
interview stage.
Okay.
And the other thing is the reason we're drafting this policy is to make it clear that the Board of Education isn't driving this, isn't really making this selection. We are filling a statutory obligation of the appointment that you are selecting. And so I think that if you put may in there, you're leaving the possibility that your process will be hijacked by the Board of Education.
I do see your point though, because it does happen sometimes where you're like, hey, it's a valid point.
But that's
A comment,
Yeah, William House and Elaine have comments as well.
Patrick, I think what you've provided there with what's listed above, if there's something that the Board of Education members would know that the library board trustees would not, then when we make them aware of the names of the candidates that we're interviewing, they would have the opportunity to share that information with us at that time. So I think it's best to leave this as a shall by giving them the names of the candidates and the fact that there will be a sharing of applications, however each board defines that. I think that would come out in the process. And so rather than leaving it otherwise, I think shall works. And then with the sharing of information, things like that would come out in the process.
Hey, Bill, in the unlikely event that that would happen, but I can definitely see why Patrick brought it up. The other option, if it were to happen, is we could call for a special meeting and go into executive session, everybody, and kind of discuss it. If it were kind of a 911, last minute emergency situation.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah, just a suggestion.
Elaine, did you need to say something? No, you're okay. Okay, she's good now.
Okay, so that was,
We're gonna leave it as is.
yes,
Yeah.
that was paragraph 9.
So now we're on 10.
Okay, paragraph 10, any comments? And paragraph 10 has some sub-bullets, so read through A through D.
I thought A and B could be combined.
Into the similar.
May I ask in 10, what does that mean in order to maximize the class of candidates?
Oh, I think it should be number. I think.
Diversity or.
Or,
It
right.
kind of
Maximize the-
sounds a little snooty. I don't know.
I
You know what I'm saying?
I should say the number.
Why don't we say in order to maximize
The pool of candidates.
I would say like pool. Yeah, I like pool.
Way to go, Dave.
And then Pam's comment was, could A and B be combined?
I separated them to make them more readily readable. I think if you combine them, they become cumbersome, but I mean, I don't mind to combine them, but
Only because I was confused what the, let me reread it again. I think I just got hung up on local media, publicize on local media, and then the next one was respective websites and social media. That was the.
so local media, I guess the way I was defining it in my mind was like the Tipp Gazette, newspapers or
Miami
whatever.
Valley News in Troy.
And then after that, what we have dominion and control over would be the websites and social media accounts.
We could change it to, Pam, if you like this better, publicize the vacancy locally. Or do you, are you okay with it now or?
It's okay.
Okay.
I was local media, I was thinking internet initially.
Okay,
I understand what you're saying.
okay, great. So you're okay with A
I'm okay.
and B?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Any comments, any other comments from anybody on 10?
So just
Are we
on
okay with C and D?
on C to clarify, just when we get in a letter of intent and a resume, we send
A response.
we have a list of questions that we send to the applicant. Not the same questions we ask in the interview,
Okay,
a questionnaire.
yeah, thank you for applying.
No, it's a list of questions. They fill out their answers and they submit those answers back to us. But that's after we get a letter of intent.
But before the interview.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Great, okay. Oh, that's nice. Send application forms to all inquirers.
Let me, so the reason this was in here is that what you're wanting to do is not obstruct anybody's ability to come in. And you have a very, very simple process with the letter of intent
Ours needs
and
to
a
be-
resume.
Actually, now that I read
And so,
C doesn't make any sense because we don't have an application.
So I think what I would say is I would do,
There you go, yeah.
instead of send an application, is
This is maximizing the pool.
provide the,
Provide the question.
the,
Job description, position description?
no, you want to be able to tell anybody who shows any interest how they actually formally apply. And that may just be a letter of intent with the resume. So I think respond to all inquiries related to applying with the information needed to apply.
That's fine.
That's
We
good.
do that. And again, that's our policy. As soon as someone applies, they get a response. Usually it goes through the director just because they are the face. And the director will say, thank you for applying for the library board. Your resume has been passed on to the trustees.
And I'll just say
Just so
timely,
because you've sent stuff in before and if you don't get a response,
Yeah.
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't know if they got it, if they're ignoring you, if they
Yeah.
hate you.
It's like when you send a wedding gift, no thank you. You're like, did you get
Did
my,
you get it? Right.
did you
So
get
we-
that?
and
That is
again-
exactly what I sent you. Where's my thank you note? I
Right.
get it. Yeah,
Right. So, but that's, I mean, again, that's already what we do.
perfect.
and I'll have to rephrase it a little bit because it's kind of, I don't like the wording, but it'd be something along the lines of timely respond to all inquiries related to applying with information needed to apply. That's not obviously very nice. So I'll try to make it, but that's the sentiment it's going to provide.
Yeah.
If
For a
that's-
formal application procedure, because again,
Yeah.
after we have what we're calling an application, there is a formal procedure that we follow. Which
It's
is
the questionnaire,
they
right?
get a question, they get a letter saying that we received their thing,
Yep.
and they get the questionnaires
Yep.
that they complete and they return those. If you want to call that the formal application procedure for this step, because if that changes,
Yeah.
if we change that, it doesn't change your policy.
I'm just going to say, I'm going to leave it very, very,
Okay,
very loose and vague. Just the information that you need to have to apply.
yes.
Because if you don't have the questionnaire, you change your processes. That's
Very good.
That's good.
That's very good. Okay, final call on comments to paragraph 10.
We did
What's
D.
D?
Anything on D? We
What
didn't do
is
D.
D?
Announce the appointment to the public.
Appointment?
I wasn't.
First two selected.
Selection. Like we did tonight, she'll put in the newsletter, she'll put a picture of Elaine getting sworn in.
Yes, I do both.
I just don't.
How about I say announce the appointment of the trustee to the public? Is that
Yeah.
easier
Sure.
Yes.
to understand?
Appointment
I was
trust.
just saying, it doesn't really, it just doesn't seem like a bullet under that. Because it's saying, in order to maximize the number. of-
Yeah,
It's about maximizing the pool of candidates.
well, I guess that's true. It does not belong there.
It
Announce-
doesn't belong.
It could be.
Well, we know we're gonna
Somewhere else.
announce it. Do you want to just get rid of
So
D?
I'll just,
Because we swear them in January because we pick who swears them
All
in.
right,
So we know it's gonna get announced.
so you guys want to take that out?
I think we should take
All
it
right.
out.
And this C doesn't look there either.
Yeah, it's like I'm saying, it doesn't
C's not
mean to
about
maximize the pool of
maximizing.
candidates.
Sure it is. If you're not timely responding,
Oh,
Yeah.
you're changing that word.
Yeah.
You're changing
If I
that.
can see that.
and if you're not sending applications to people, let's say you had an application that are asking, you're not going to get your biggest pool of candidates.
That's
Good, good point.
Needs reworded.
Okay, now it's last call, paragraph 10.
okay. Now we're-
All right, paragraph 11.
And just a quick note, 11 again, after capacity, it now reads, and in accordance with the process defined by the Library Board of Trustees.
Yes.
Paragraph 12. Paragraph 13.
Just on 12, is
Oh,
that
sorry.
only applicable if the board wants to participate?
Yeah, if in January, nobody wants to, then there's 0. And that'll change every year because we have every 2 years we get new board members, so.
If no one from the, I'm
Okay.
just saying, if
Hang on,
nobody.
William.
Go ahead, Bill.
On 12, because sometimes Board of Education members may participate, sometimes they may not. And we also don't necessarily know when special work sessions or things like that may be necessary for the Board of Education in the future. Might it be better to change that shall to the extent possible So the library board of trustees shall, to the extent possible, ensure, because we can't completely ensure that we're not going to, because we're not involved with your calendar.
Bill, can I spin that a different way at the end? Where it says, with Board of Education work sessions or regular meetings, comma, if Board of Education members will be participating. Because some years you might not have any. Because if you say, we just want to make sure that, you know, if we do have 1 or 2 people in January, that, and if we do want to participate, because we'll know in January, that it would be terrible if it was on a night that we had meetings.
I think what he's saying though is if we schedule these interviews 3 weeks out and 2 days before you call a special meeting because something happens and then board members aren't supposed to make it.
Sorry, I
then we
didn't
have
catch
to-
that.
We've got 6 interviews blocked that night.
I did not catch that. Is that
That's
what
why
you
he would
meant,
like
Bill?
to add that in there.
Matt, you hit it where it's at, because obviously if we have board members participating, we're gonna schedule them for some other times, but with say we get a pool of candidates like 15 and we schedule 2 or 3 weeks out, and then there's an emergency crisis that requires you to have a special meeting, it's probably in the best need of the process and the timeline for us to carry those forward rather than try to reschedule them if it's not possible and still meet the January swearing in and the 45 days and all that.
I didn't even consider that because I would never do that.
That makes sense to me, to the extent possible.
Okay, so Bill, can you say that again? Because I wasn't even thinking of that scenario because I would never do that. So will you read that again?
You just put in there and say the Tipp City Library Boards of Trustees, to the extent possible, shall ensure.
Thank you. I understand it now and I'm fine with it.
Can we also do Mrs. Dunaway's suggestion, but at the end, comma, when Board of Education members are participating?
I would just leave it the way Bill suggested, and the reason is that, not that anybody would play games in this room, but if somebody says, oh, we didn't realize you're participating, so we didn't worry about meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you leave that out, then it's just like, look, to the extent possible, we're gonna make this work. I think that works, and I think it's a good compromise for everybody.
Okay. Any additional comments on paragraph 12?
Thanks, Bill and Matt.
You're welcome.
Paragraph 13.
I have a comment.
Yes, Elaine.
Why are we doing the executive director and the superintendent versus the boards?
Well,
We can change it to anything.
I kind of wonder about that.
the reason is that once this is in place, the policy's there. If the boards wanted to change it, they would get together and talk about it and coordinate that. But the boots on the ground, the superintendent and the executive director would get together and talk about logistics of it, maybe administrative. And the other thing is too, is that the Board of Education and the superintendent, or I'm sorry, the Board of Education and the Tipp City Library Board, maybe not as much as the Library Board of Trustees, but the Board of Education, we have more turnover, typically more than the superintendent and the executive director. And so if they're meeting every 2 years, it's going to help that institutional memory go on. I think what happened here is that institutional memory was lost. This policy helps that, and bringing in the superintendent and executive director helps that. And then we, as a board, review our policies every once in a while, and that also helps that as well. So to me, it's kind of like a belt and suspenders thing. We could certainly switch it to the Board of Trustees and and the executive director and this.
I like the idea of the superintendent and the library director meeting. I would actually I actually read this differently the first time. I would actually prefer to have it every year. I don't think it's unreasonable to have an annual.
It is every other.
It's every other year.
Question.
There's always, did we do it last year? Or,
You know what? I was thinking it said every, so wow,
It
you're
seems like
right.
it'd be a good idea for them to get together once a year to talk about this.
Lisa, do you think that's too much? Oh, no, Is that that's your easy. schedule? That's easy. I cross over with Mark a lot. Mr. Stefanik, is that okay for you if it's every year instead of every other?
I love meetings.
Okay. Listen, we promise it's not, if it's over 5 hours, send an SOS. We'll come rescue you. or Lisa.
It could be an email, it could be.
Okay, so we're gonna do every year.
Do we want to pick a month to make it so that we're not pushing it off? Because when you
How
have,
about if we say in the first quarter of every year?
Yeah.
And they can discuss what happened in the.
Because then our
preceding
people
turnover.
sign up in January, so I was gonna even say every February, but
First quarter.
First quarter, I like
Before the end of the
Because if
first
something in
quarter.
the process didn't go right,
Yeah.
or if there was a problem, it's fresh.
Somebody was on vacation.
Right, it's fresh.
Yeah.
so what I've got now on that is this, is that in order to ensure institutional memory and compliance, no later than the end of the first quarter of the year, the executive director of the TIPSy, and then everything else that's there.
All right, any other comments on 13?
I have a comment, Bill, I'd like to make. It's just an idea, if you don't like it, fine. But I was thinking about how things kind of got lost in the process. And I came across this in my files, and again, it's just an idea. When, after my confirmation, my election to the board, I got the certificate of election from Miami County Board of Elections. I didn't know it was coming. I thought it was really nice because it has, you know, my name, the date, et cetera, duly elected, signed by. And I was thinking, what if, just to help cement the connection between the two boards, after the appointments made by the Board of Education, if we generated, I mean, this is cost, you know, nothing to generate something with the trustee's name on it from the Board of Education. And I thought it might serve two purposes. They can bring it, get notice, hey, do you want to come by and pick up your certificate of appointment? And that way they can have it when they come in for their swearing in, even if it's a second term. And that way everybody knows that those connections were made. And then, of course, that trustee can do with it as they like.
I think something like that certainly would, like if something like that would be generated by the Board of Education following your meeting when you make the appointment.
Right.
That certainly would, I mean, having a paper trail is always a good thing.
Yeah.
I think I would like to have that letter come to our board so that we can present it to the,
So you can
so that we
present
can
the
present it to the
certificate
trustee, maybe at their signing in kind of a
at the
thing.
swearing in, that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
at the swearing in thing, yes,
And
I
then
think that's
and
fine.
then the trustee, the way I look at it, I mean, this was nice. I didn't know this was coming, and it makes sense now that it's official. But what I'm saying, especially for the trustee, number one, it helps link that, solidify the connection between the two boards. But as importantly, I think for a trustee who serves 7 years and is not compensated, it's just nice whether you put it in your resume or not, your CV on your wall or in your file cabinet.
I think something like that is nice.
The other thing that has happened just is that I have gone to a school board meeting and brought the candidate and always came during the comments from the public or when you introduce new staff. So William and I, we call him William because we have a Bill, we went together and I introduced him to the board. So there's been times that I've
I did that
gone.
on my, when I was.
Yeah, so the director would come and introduce, so that is one of the things that, but it's, I don't know at that time if it's not documented in minutes and things like that, but I have brought the candidate.
I remember Bill.
So William House is gone, that can be some continuum of,
I think that's good practice. I don't want to put that in policy.
I understand, but if we're gonna put that they get a certificate in a
Do
policy?
you want to put that in there?
Okay,
Or
yeah.
Well, that's-
how do you feel about
I mean,
that? For
Their
the,
policy.
That's your
their
policy.
policy.
Okay.
Certainly, anything that we would do would be
Got
in compliance with that in our policy, but if you want to add that to the policy, that's. I don't think, nobody here
We're
would
not
object to that.
objecting to
It's
that,
not
but it's not
objectionable.
required.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
okay.
Yeah.
So do we decide that here, since we have a quorum, do we decide that for our policy? The Board of Education offering this after the appointment's made by vote
Sure. Joellen, how do you feel about the board issuing this certificate?
of appointment.
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, Simon?
Doesn't have to be.
I'm okay with either way. I just need to know so I can write it in.
Well, Joellen, one reason though, I'm also saying, I just think it's a nice piece to give to the trustee. I mean, maybe you guys give something like a plaque, I don't know.
When they leave, you do.
He did the
When they
executive
leave, you
washroom.
do.
But it has to be
Don't
14
ruin
years.
the surprise.
Matt, it has to be 14 years. Seven's nothing.
Right.
I'm still waiting for my first
We
paycheck.
paid them their membership
How
to
about
the.
this?
There you go.
Okay, so Joellen is a yes, Simon is a either way, and I am a, oh, sorry, Joellen, you're a no. Simon, you're a either way, I'm an either way. What's your,
Oh, I mean, yes, I mean, I think. it
okay,
could be
so we have one no, one yes, and two whatever.
All I'm
what is that?
saying
What is that,
if
Matt?
I-
What does that equal?
If I served on a
One no,
board,
one yes, and
if I
two.
served on a board for 7 years and then served in that, I mean, I just think it would be nice to say, hey, yeah.
Again, I think our board stance is gonna be, if you would like to do something nice for our board, we will not.
Do it, okay,
We will
yeah.
not tell you no,
I-
but
yeah,
we're not
you
gonna
can
make
figure
it
that out.
require
There you
the
go.
policy.
It was nice, and we can do that, Jamie, but I don't think it has to be in a policy.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
well,
Maybe you're just nicer than me. I don't know.
All right.
Joellen would like to add something.
Go ahead, Joel.
Why don't we discuss this aspect at our next meeting when we finalize this policy?
Oh, there you go.
We don't have our full board here to vote on that. We haven't decided who's going to be delegated to do that task. I think we can just table this part.
We just suggested that, Joellen. Thank you. It's hard to hear.
so I think the benefit is presenting it to your board so you don't feel blindsided by anything. If that's gonna be, and you feel, and what I'm hearing is you don't have any objection or concern about it?
Correct.
Okay.
So I think we're done with all of that, Bill, unless anybody else has
Did
any.
we do
Did we do
14 yet?
14?
Just to-
Oh, I thought
I didn't check it off yet.
Oh, sorry. I thought we just did
Okay.
14.
Any comments at 14? All right, we have gone through every paragraph. I think we have heard a lot of good comments. I think.
Great.
I have one comment.
I was going to ask, are there any additional comments?
Simon has one and Elaine has one.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go last.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Simon?
Earlier, we were talking about the shared drive or the email. I was going to add that at 13. I think instead what I'll do is add it at 1B, I think. Yeah, 1B, and then it's going to be something along as determined by the superintendent and executive director, something like that.
I like that. That's great.
Elaine, your comments?
Okay, please remember, I was a government editor, and this drives why I say what I'm saying. In the title of our document that you're reviewing, it says Tipp City Public Library Trustees. And from thereafter, it just says Tipp City Library Board of Trustees. And whenever we say Tipp City Library Board of Trustees, public should be in there.
Thank you, Elaine. That's a good
Now,
catch.
you can eliminate the Tipp City and just say Library Board of Trustees, but we should be consistent throughout.
Thank you.
What I'll do is I'll revise that. That's my fault.
Yeah, there technically is no Tipp City Library. There's a Tipp City Public Library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone could open it.
A library of their own and call it Tipp City.
Elaine, did you have more, or was that your only comment?
Yeah, she has more. Elaine, you have another
That
one?
was it. That was it.
Thank you.
Six
All right.
schools,
Any-
Tipp City, executive village schools.
Any other additional comments?
William House, do you have any?
I do not.
Anybody else that's present?
I would just like to say this is a lot of work, and I thank Simon for
Yes.
doing it.
Thank everybody involved. It was great.
I think Shaker Heights too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you, Shaker Heights.
Well, it's no longer looks anything like Shaker Heights, unfortunately.
People are gonna be taking ours now.
So I do appreciate, I think we all appreciate you being willing to direct that. Put it
Right.
forward.
I think the procedure now is. you
Yeah,
guys make
so
a motion to
now,
adjourn?
if there's no further comments on item A, we will move on to item B. Item B is the Miami County probate court response.
That wasn't it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you get, fine.
Yeah. So we just want to discuss the letter that myself, Linda, and Mark Stefanik received. I believe, Linda, you sent it to your board. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So how do you all want to proceed on that with the, it's the seats of Matt Krasinski and Patrick Reese. We're assuming that you two want to obviously keep them in place and that we need to communicate that to the probate court, but we don't want to make assumptions. So if you guys just tell us what you want to do, and then
Do
we can all.
we have a copy of that letter?
We think
what happened
Chris
today.
Engelhardt is going to make a
Yes.
petition.
So it happened at
December 16th.
3:18 today. A letter came from Chris Englert.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
It just, he just emailed me.
Oh, it was just you.
Just
Okay.
He
email.
said it was, I think he said it was faxed to you.
No, that's the other one they got yesterday.
That was from.
We
That
got
was
one yesterday because
Okay.
Linda sent an email.
Yes,
They
there's a
responded.
lot, there were so many letters circulating, but at 3:18 this afternoon, I got an email that says, "Good afternoon, Ms. Santucci. I have spoken with Judge Altenberger this afternoon based upon our discussion and as allowed by Ohio Revised Section 337513, I will prepare and file with the probate court, after your review, of course, I don't want to review, a formal petition requesting that he make the appointments for the 2 vacant library trustee positions. Afterward, Judge Altenberger will hold a hearing within 10 days of it being filed and based upon the evidence presented, make appropriate appointments to the vacant positions. I will send the proposed petition to you in the next day or 2. So once I get that, this had just happened, I thought if I send it to you, I'd rather just read it to you.
Yeah.
And then once I get that petition, I will forward that to everybody. So
Is
that
it
you can
possible
see.
that you can send that to
This email?
myself and I'll forward it to Mark and our entire board, just so we all have
It
it?
just came in and.
Yeah, because, you know, Craig
Holy
isn't here
Christ.
and, okay. So, sorry, Linda, Beck, is someone trying to talk?
I am.
Okay.
Make a point.
Oh,
Nope.
I'll wait.
Okay. Chris Englert has a typo. It is not 3375.13. It's 3375.15.
Right.
Oh, good God.
Yeah, it says that right in on top of our paper, see?
Yes, it does, but not on this email.
Yeah, yep, you're correct. I haven't seen the email, so thank you for that. That's why it's always important to see something, you know, because, yeah. Anything else, Elaine? Elaine?
No.
Okay, so Linda, I was trying to say something to you, and I can't remember what did I get my question out before I hopped on?
No.
What was I trying to say? We're on the same page, right?
Right.
Your intent is to keep, okay.
Yes.
We're just trying to get the judge to pay attention to us.
Yeah, so, Lisa's gonna send me that email. I will forward it to our entire board and Mr. Stefanik and Mr. Stevens. So then really there isn't anything to discuss because I think we're on the same page. And we'll just keep everybody in the loop, as a group, and it'll be your and I's responsibility to, you know, share all these
Bill's
emails.
the president.
Should be
Oh,
on that.
Change.
Okay, sorry about that. I didn't catch, okay,
New calendar year.
perfect. Okay, gotcha.
I will be the
So,
point of contact.
Bill, what's your email? Just so I think I have it, but I don't have it actually.
Bill@billwendell.com.
Okay. 2 L's?
1 L. Well, 2 on Bill.
Yeah, I got that. It wasn't, wow, it's Bill, okay, gotcha. Okay, so are we good? There's really nothing else to discuss in this,
I do
correct?
have a question.
Yes, please.
Lisa, do you know what prompted the generation of that recent letter that you got today?
Well,
I can answer
Linda sent an
for-
email.
So Chris Engelhardt is our legal counsel in Miami County,
Yeah,
and we asked him, we wrote after, we didn't know about your letter to the judge, we wrote a letter to the judge, similar to yours.
yeah, just saying, keep it, yeah.
Right, here's what happened, what can we do to go forward? And so that was his response back to our letter.
Because Linda sent an email also. Yeah, perfect.
So that helps because we just had our board meeting. We were
Mhm.
talking about filing.
And we didn't know that Linda sent an
To
email.
get.
So-
We also, I think everyone sent one in December. Like
Yeah.
everyone sent these.
Yeah, we sent it right after our
Yes.
meeting.
So this
Yeah.
is fooling around and not acting. It was
Yeah.
driving me nuts.
Right, we're good to go.
They kind
Okay.
of told us we can't do anything about it to one of the boards makes a move, so.
And we did make a formal request for him to do that, and this letter was basically saying that you can't just do the request, it has to be filed as a petition, and it has to go to a
So
hearing, and he's gonna follow the process.
this
At
email,
least we have direction and that they're willing to.
Right.
Good.
this was sent to all of you just now, Teresa.
Thank
So
you. I'll
to
forward
you,
it.
to Dave, to Mark, I got everybody.
Oh, you're great.
I just sent it, everyone has a copy of it because I had one copy, it just happened.
Okay,
Just because we pushed on it, because I.
great.
Maybe they were watching our meeting.
So is there anything else on item B? Are we good? Any further comments? Okay,
Yeah, I have
Oh,
one thing,
yes,
it's
sir, go
just
ahead. Mm-hmm.
going back to item A, and then going back to item B after that, but item A,
1A.
or
Yep.
1A.
1A, okay, great.
Oh, the polls.
1A,
Mhm.
so I guess just want to make sure that what we've discussed as far as revisions makes sense, at least to the there's nobody really has any strenuous objections. So what I would suggest is that we prepare these revisions and exchange them among the boards for then review and discussion, further discussion separately or approval. And then we go forward from there. My thought is that after that, we probably get the executive director and superintendent or their respective legal counsel of each board to get together to do some type of joint resolution where we would formally adopt it together and then make it part of each of our policies, if that makes sense. If not, then, but that's kind of where I think we're going. And so you don't necessarily follow that, but that's what I'm thinking. And then as far as item B, 1B.
Before you go on,
Yeah.
two things on that. I have a sense that your policies are more formal than what ours are. Maybe that's the wrong word to use, but we typically don't involve legal counsel in review of our policies and things like that. So I don't know that we would go to that.
We send them to Chris a lot. We have.
We have a couple, but
Especially new ones.
This is a joint, essentially
Okay.
agreement by
Perhaps
two
we'll make it
boards.
But my second question is there any timing issues here? I mean, is there any reason that we would need to have special meetings, or can we?
No.
We'll do this at our February meeting.
I'm not gonna do it, meaning the board, February work session. Because this, our board meetings are way too long anyway. So this would be to us February work session, which is
Okay.
probably around the 14-ish. I don't have my phone calendar up. So no, there's no rush.
Okay, that's what I wanted to confirm.
With the appointment of your last trustee being made, the next ones that we have jurisdiction over doesn't happen until the end of the last term.
Yeah.
The other items have to be handled by the probate court, so there is no timing issues
Yeah.
on that front. Then on 1B,
February 9th.
I thought we had discussed yesterday, and I could be mistaken, of potentially making a joint petition or a joint complaint where there's no objection.
We don't have to
or-
know. We don't have to know because we got that letter at 3:18, so we're good.
Well, that letter, is William still on here?
Yes, I am.
All right, so my thought was yesterday is that if we do a joint petition, it takes away a lot of issues for the judge. There's no possibility for anybody with really having standing to object, and then it could be useful, but we don't have to do it that way. It's up to the Board of Education.
I need to read the letter, but
Chris Engler technically can be your counsel as well?
Yes.
Is that
Yeah.
correct?
And that's what he said.
Chris's boss is theirs.
Okay, well, the same office.
Yeah, it's Miami County.
That-
Yeah.
Perhaps, I mean, if that's
Tony Kendall
a
and-
desirable thing,
Yeah.
maybe it's just as simple as contacting that office
I'm
and
hoping
saying,
it's,
hey, we want to do
Yeah,
this together.
right.
Hey, Simon,
Yes, sir.
it may be as simple as well if it's not necessarily a joint resolution. If it is a resolution or a petition that's put forth by the library board, if there is for lack of a better term, a consent from the Board of Education, something that can be attached to that petition stating that there's no objection on behalf of the Board of Education.
Yeah.
And that could be as simple as a simple resolution by the board that we could attach to the petition. That might be easier, and it might prevent us from having to have Chris doing this for us and then having to have you bring in separate legal counsel just because of the two separate boards, even though it's a joint resolution. That might be an easier way to handle it.
and
Yeah.
hopefully, Bill, it sounds like to me like we're on the same page, we won't have to have a hearing because there's, right?
I think if our petition's attached with something, either a resolution or we call them consents in the probate world, but if there's something that's with that petition that says the Board of Education does not object to the appointment of those two persons to those two trustee spots, then it may go off without a hearing. It may be something that the judge may still desire a hearing just because this is something so outside the realm of what he typically handles.
Yeah, he's never handled it. So this would be like the first time.
No one in the
So
state of Ohio has handled, there hasn't been a probate court that's happened.
I know, that's
Our
what
lobby
I'm saying.
group was, the director of the Ohio Library Council said that she's never had, and she's been there for 15 years, that they've ever gone to probate.
I suspect that this has happened before,
Oh,
but that people just didn't follow the rules and they just.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, it's
They
happened,
just went
sure.
along, yeah.
that's probably the most
Yeah.
valid statement there.
This will definitely not be a reported case, so it would be very difficult for somebody else unless they knew the exact issue, date, court, and everything to locate this. It's not something that's going to be published far and wide and show up in Lexis and Westlaw searches. So,
Right.
Simon, I think it can either be a joint resolution. It might be simpler if we petition the court and there is a resolution or something stating the Board of Education's lack of objection.
Okay, well, Simon and I are the library committee members, so we will discuss this. There's no reason for us to hold up your meeting. So we will discuss it and reach out to Mr. Wendell and Mrs. Santucci, if that's okay.
Well, I think we'll talk about it at our next board meeting and
Yeah,
then we
right.
will be the point of contact with you guys
Right.
after that. Yeah.
Does that work for you?
I just have one more thing I'd like to
Yeah.
add real quick. Just these last couple of months have been tumultuous, I think, for all of us.
Mostly us.
Right, and I think a lot of it came from comments that were made during one of your meetings. And I think it's important, and I'm not going to lecture your board, but it's important that when things are said at your meeting, you understand people are watching. Because as a library board member, lots of times we'll hear it secondhand and we'll say, did you hear what the school board said? Now, I think it's common courtesy anytime you're going to be talking about the library board, that the library board knows that. I know your agenda comes out early in the day. You know when we're going to be on it. That's an easy email to say, hey, library, we're going to be talking about the trustee position, because that one caught us off guard. We didn't know. Ms. Santucci went just because she heard we were on the agenda. She was invited in. During that conversation, a couple of times she was referred to while she was in there and when she left as our librarian. She is not our librarian. She is the executive director of the Tipp City Public Library. She has more degrees than would ever be needed to be the director of this library. We put the faith of this library in her. We respect her as a person. We respect her as a director. And so to watch her be insulted several times during that first meeting, and then to continually hear things negatively said against her personally, it's disheartening as from this board, because we've always felt we had a great relationship with the Board of Education. Again, I'm on too many years on this board, right? I've been on a long time. We've tried to work together. At one point, we were trying to get medical care because we thought, oh, if there's any.
Matt.
Yes.
Okay. Your point's across.
Did you, Matt, did you have anything you wanted to include with it?
I just think going forward, we would like to continue the relationship that we've had prior to the last few months. This board understands that you were in a position that you'd never been in before. And from our end, we hadn't done anything differently than we had always done. And when our fiscal officer makes a phone call to the secretary at the Board of Education every year to say, hey, this is who's being appointed, if that message didn't get disseminated to you guys on our end, yeah, we should have followed up. We should have checked your minutes, but we didn't. But we followed our policies and our procedures. And so when it was being posted, and unfortunately, and you posted it personally, that the library did illegal things. Those words were used. The library is acting illegally. The library is acting illegally. It came out of a meeting.
I said they did not follow.
So it works both ways. And when the public hears that, now all of a sudden we've got a PR nightmare that the library is doing illegal things. And again, we're all taxpayers. That's the only money we get. None of us sell stuff. We get money from the taxpayers. So when they are nervous that we are doing illegal things, it hurts all of us. And no one did anything illegal. There was some neglect on both parts. We missed some windows. We didn't follow up right. We're all volunteers. You guys get paid about nothing, so you're volunteers. We're all doing it because we want what's best for our entities. You, the schools, us, the library. That's why we do it. Going forward, I don't want this. I don't like the animosity. I don't like that we have to be nervous when the school board wants to talk to us. We're not getting called to the principal's office. We're a professional board as well. Right? We do things the right way. We use legal counsel. If we have questions, we have our people look it up the same way, and we can all get along. It's a great town, right? We have a great town. We have two great boards with different minded people, which is fine and which is great. But the personal parts and saying things, no one watches our meetings. So if I want to say the school board does things illegally, right? No one knows that. But yours is different, and so you do have that. And it could have been handled with a phone call to our director, to our board, an email. There's lots of ways other than discussing it first publicly, especially during a time when the only way the public could view it was remotely. So a lot more people were watching than it would have been said when the normal crowd was there. So.
But Matt, if I may, because I would like to urge you to go back and read my post because I never used the word illegal. I said it did not follow the law. And the reason I said that is because we have legal counsel
Right.
and what we were advised, and legally there is a procedure.
Which we followed though, and that's the problem. We followed that part of the law. We advised you of the trustee. You
Yes,
didn't.
let's not rehash. I think that everybody can agree that, that there were times when things got a little unpleasant. And I think everybody agreed that, that we have all put things in place. We've all agreed that there are things that can be done better. And we put things in place in the form of this policy, in the forms of some of our communications that we've now got going on amongst each other, in forms of the new policy that we're going to be, again, modifying to be more consistent with this. I think that we have all understood that there are some gaps in the process. There are some gaps in our institutional memory. And I think we've all made great strides in closing those, fixing those. And I think I would like to conclude this part of the conversation with looking forward. And I appreciate that the Board of Education has named 2 people as liaisons to the library board. I think that's great. We've always had great relationships with the school, sort of on the ground level, school library to city library to public library. And I think that we can have that kind of a relationship that's positive going forward from board to board and from superintendent to executive director and those sorts of levels. So I'd like to conclude with let's be positive and look forward to what we can do in the future.
But I want to make a final comment, Matt. I will reach out to you and I would love to get together and talk with you because there's a lot of things you said tonight, which I would like to address because one of my personal beliefs is that a lot of things in life can be solved with communication. And when there's not direct communication, there's not a resolution. So I have been wanting to reach out to you for a while. I just wanted to get to this kind of place first so that we were both kind of, I don't want to say on an even keel, but knowing that we were both coming from a good place.
Right.
And I did send Linda an email on Tuesday. I don't know if she forwarded that with all of you. That was extremely disappointing to me. And I would love the opportunity to discuss that with you person to person, not holding up the meeting as a group. But do you have an email that I can reach you at or how can I contact you?
Yeah, MW.
Okay.
TAR.
Uh-huh.
At Yahoo.
Okay, great. And I would love to sit down and kind of go over all this because I think at the end of the day, it just got way out of control and there were a lot of reasons. And I think this is an awesome start so that future library boards of trustees and future boards of education will never have to go through 2 months of the social media.
Agreed.
I don't even know what to call that it will never happen again. It was horrifying, and it went way too far. And it's unacceptable.
Both ways, that works in both ways.
It's unacceptable and it's just unacceptable.
Right.
There's no reason for it. So, okay.
We appreciate you guys being here tonight. I mean,
So-
thank you very much.
Do you have additional agenda items?
I was just gonna call for a motion to adjourn. Okay, so I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Can I
I'll mention.
get a motion? Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion and seconded. Dave, that was Mrs. Zakor and Mr. Patry.
Okay.
And
Zakor?
Zakor and Patry.
Yes,
Motion,
yep, I'm calling for the vote.
thank you.
Zakor?
Yes.
Patry?
Yes.
Dunaway?
Yes,
Heatherly?
Yes.
meeting adjourned.